Part 26. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 251. Portcas de Luju's belly could no longer be covered at this time. No matter how hard she struggled, her belly was still getting bigger day by day. Fortunately, neither the world government nor the Navy had any doubts about her. After all, the time was not right anymore. It was common sense to conceive in 10 months. This pregnancy should be either earlier or later, it can't be too sudden. Judging from Luju's current state and appearance, she was pregnant for at most 4 or 5 months. And Roger has been dead for such a long time. From the surface, it is impossible for Luju to be pregnant with Roger's child. Therefore, although no one said anything on the surface, many people secretly scolded Garp for his lack of moral integrity. He was pretending to be a public servant in the South China Sea for personal gain. He was clearly supervising the matter of Roger's bloodline. However, there was no sign of it, and he even kept a secret for himself. Regarding this strange view, Garp also had trouble expressing himself. In the end, he could only grit his teeth and take the blame. Although she was pregnant, Luju was still very virtuous. She got up early in the morning and made some breakfast for Garp. After all, although Garp is strong, his ability to survive is very limited. Just like that, expecting him to cook for Luju would make it difficult for mother and son to be safe. When it comes to surviving in the wild, he is very good at it. With Garp's thick skin, he didn't feel anything sorry. Luju has long been indifferent to the rumors outside. She was a little shy at first, but now, she only wants to find a way for the child in her belly to survive. A little gossip can't shake her will. It's just that she has an affair with Garp. As long as she understands what's going on, that's enough. As the woman of the Pirate King, why should she care about the world's opinions? After bringing breakfast to the dining table, Luju glanced at Garp, who was sitting not far away. At this time, Garp had a very gloomy expression and was talking to someone on the phone. Is there any possibility of being framed? That rascal, how could it become like this? With a hint of pain in his eyes, Garp asked the phone bug. The phone bug was silent for a while, and then the voice of the Warring States General came out. Garp, this matter is of great importance. Our Navy is also involved in the investigation. Those guys in CP don't dare to mess around with this kind of thing. After many investigations, it is true that traces of that guy Darag were found, and he played a very important role behind the scenes, the Warring States General said softly. It is not difficult to hear that his voice is a little heavy at this time. The former pride of the Navy has suddenly degenerated into an evil criminal and a subversive of the country. This makes him very uncomfortable. After all, Dora the guy GE could be considered to have grown up under his nose. A long time ago, Warring States and others regarded Darag as their nephew and descendant. Garp was silent for a moment, and then asked with a trembling tone. He said, has the order there been restored? The whole incident, how much damage and casualties were caused? The Warring States General did not say anything about economic losses, but said helplessly nearly 70,000 people were displaced. No one from the domestic aristocracy survived. The casualties caused by the war were roughly 40,000. Tens of thousands. For a small country in the East China Sea, this is already a disaster. When Garp heard this, a burst of anger flashed in his eyes, and he punched his knee violently, and cursed in a low voice, that bastard actually did such an outrageous thing, and even embarrassed me. It's all gone. Have you found his whereabouts? I'm going to kill him with my own hands. Don't be anxious, don't be impulsive. As for the guy Darag, we haven't found any trace of him yet. However, due to our reasons, the superiors decided to hand him over to the CP agency for handling. Under normal circumstances, our Navy is not allowed to intervene, even if we want to get involved. We should also give priority to the CP side, the Warring States General said quickly. This guy Durag has a very deep relationship with the Navy. Almost all the senior leaders of the Navy have some friendship with him, and he is the son of a naval hero. Therefore, it is completely impossible for the world government to this matter is left to the Navy to resolve. The one they can trust in this matter is the CP agency. On the one hand, it is because the grievances between the CP agency and the Navy have long been unclear, and they will only seize the it is impossible for the Navy to hide something for the Navy. On the other hand, Durag is not a pirate after all, and the things he did are not within the scope of the Navy's authority. Instead, they fall under the responsibility of the CP agency. It is reasonable to give it to them. Garp was also a little irritable at this time. He has always wanted to train Durag into an excellent navy, and he will be a good son to inherit his father's legacy and take over his class. Originally, this was all good. Everything went smoothly, but Durag suddenly ran away halfway. This time, there was no trace of him. Garp has never seen Durag yet. It doesn't matter, Garp has been here for so long, and he has never seen Durag. He has been forced to accept this fact. But Durag is still his pride, because Garp is convinced that even if Durag leaves the Navy, he must still be righteous. But now, the facts have given him a hard Urgwazi, his proud son, directly or indirectly killed tens of thousands of people, subverted a stable country in the East China Sea, and committed countless crimes. There may be some reason for this, but no matter what, Durag has made mistakes and is a criminal, which cannot be washed away. As a result, one can imagine how big a blow it will have on Garp. I want to go back to headquarters, Garp suddenly said in a deep voice. Don't be impulsive, you guy. I know you can't calm down. What are you going to do when you return to headquarters? Nothing can be done but add to the chaos. Do you still want to attack Marijoa and demolish the headquarters of the CP agency? The Warring States General scolded. Warring States, Garp shouted in a low voice. Cap, Warring States also roared angrily. After a short pause, he continued, during this period, just stay in Nanhai and don't do stupid things. After all, Garp didn't get angry and went back to the Navy headquarters to make trouble. After being silent for a long time, he asked, where is Zifa? Is he okay? How's your recovery going? He had to do it reluctantly, after all, one of his hands was broken. The Warring States General heard Garp change the topic, and he was very sensible and didn't mention Durag again. Is there nothing you can do? Garp frowned and said. I have asked the Science Force to come up with a plan. Dr. Vegapunk has a prosthetic technology in his hands, which he calls a mechanical power arm. It seems to be very suitable for Zifa, and, when the Warring States General said this, he paused for a moment. Garp's eyes lit up at first. Although he had no idea about this mechanical power arm, this thing sounded very handsome. It made him want to give it a try, but the cost was a bit high. He needed to cut off his hand first. And what? Garp asked curiously. Dr. Vegapunk is indeed a genius scientist, claiming to be 500 years ahead of the world. You may not believe it, but he wants to develop a brand new cloning technology based on the mechanical power arm and the blood factor theory. The Warring States General smiled and said. In the original story, Vegapunk didn't know when he started researching these high technologies, and finally created a PX pacifist. But in this time and space, Vegapunk is because of Zifa's arm. This is the reason why I became interested in this aspect. But this is just a sign at the moment, and he doesn't even have a single horoscope. He has many projects in hand, and it is estimated that he still has a long way to go before he can achieve results. Garp originally thought it was something interesting, but in the end there was a lot of chattering in the Warring States room. He was confused when he heard it, and finally couldn't help but interrupt. Okay, I'm here. Breakfast is on the table. I won't tell you more. I'm hanging up. You bastard, it seems like you are living a good life, I heard. Never mind. Warring States originally wanted to ask about Luyu's pregnancy, but in the end he thought about it and did not speak. Garp was too lazy to pay attention to him. After saying goodbye, he hung up the phone directly. After hanging up the phone, Kapapiyu walked to the dining table, looked at the sumptuous breakfast, smiled and thanked Luyu, and then said with some expectation, I really hope this child can be born healthy. Luju reached out and touched her belly, and said very gently, I think so too. Although Roger's blood flows through his body, it doesn't matter. Blood is innocent. I thought to myself that I should train this child to become an excellent navy in the future. Luyu, what do you think? Garp sat at the dining table, eating breakfast, and said with a smile. This guy Darag is obviously useless. Garp is extremely disappointed with him. He wants him to inherit his dream of the navy, then it is probably impossible. Instead of doing this, it is better to open a small account early and train it all over again. After listening to Garp's words, Luyu also smiled and said very naturally, whether it's a pirate or a navy, it's all possible. I don't ask for so much, I just hope that he can grow up healthily, if in the future, anyway, I'll leave it to Mr. Garp. Ha 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 ha, don't worry, Luyu, as long as you don't object, I will take good care of this child and train him to be an excellent navy, Garp said happily. Luyu glanced at Garp but didn't explain anything. Although she concealed it well, she was somewhat powerless at this time. She could feel that her body was getting weaker day by day. After all, she is going against nature. Sometimes, Luju will also think of a question, that is, she may not be able to watch her children grow up. However, for the safety of her children and to eliminate the last hidden danger, she had to risk her own life. At the same time, in the New World, in the waters of Whitebeard, a rare guest was also welcomed on the Moby Dick. Newgate was holding a wine flask in his hand, sitting on the throne and drinking wine. He glanced out of the corner of his eye not far away, where a guy was also sitting there. That guy has long golden hair and a somewhat funny rudder stuck on his head. He is the famous Golden Lion Shiji. For some reason, Shiji suddenly came to see Whitebeard for a drink. Gee ha 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 ha, Newgate, during the time when I was in prison, I heard that people on the sea called this era the age of Whitebeard. Shiji put down the wine bowl, laughed and joked. Newgate frowned a little. It didn't matter if others said this. When Shiji said this, he was mocking his white beard. If you come to see me just to tell me these shitty sarcastic things, I can sink you to the bottom of the sea at any time, Shiki. Newgate glanced at Skiddaw dissatisfied. Ha 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 ha, thank you all for your support. This book was on the top of the list yesterday. It has been a long time since I have been on the list. I am very excited anyway. I am very grateful to all my brothers, sisters, and friends for their support. I will continue to work hard. By the way, please ask for monthly tickets and flowers again, thank you very much. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 252. Listening to Newgate's words, Shiji couldn't help but laugh. In terms of strength, Shiji is no longer a match for Newgate, and there is a real possibility that he will be sunk to the bottom of the sea by Newgate. But he wasn't afraid at all, he just felt a little emotional and nostalgic. Your measure is getting smaller and smaller, Shiji joked with a smile. Newgate snorted, but did not answer. As for sinking Shiji to the bottom of the sea, it was just a casual talk. He didn't know what Shiji's condition was, and now it seems that Shiji doesn't have any hostility. He is naturally happy to reminisce with Shiji and chat about the past. After all, there are not many people in the sea who can sit on an equal footing with him and have a heart-to-heart talk, and Shiji just happens to be the most suitable one. You said, why did you go to sea to be a pirate? Shiji suddenly asked with emotion. Newgate was silent for a moment, glanced at Shiji, and then said, find a place to stay. That's all. Shiji raised his eyebrows and asked. That's all, Newgate responded calmly. In this way, you have fulfilled your dream, Shiki said, looking back at the people on Newgate's ship. There was also a smile on Newgate's lips and he said, Kulalala, yes, there are countless treasures in the sea, but I have already found my favorite treasure. You have inherited none of the captain's will from back then, Shiji smiled and said. Newgate was silent for a moment after hearing this. Needless to say, the captain of him and Shiji was naturally the all-powerful Rox back then. But Rox, the big boss, is now it has already become cold, and the time no longer belongs to him. Everyone has their own ambitions, and when they come out to be pirates, they have their own pursuits. Isn't it normal? Said Newgate softly. Gee ha 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 ha, you are right, you, Roger, and I are the same. Although the three of us once shared the same ocean, we ultimately embarked on different paths, Shiki said with a laugh. Newgate nodded, and then said with some emotion, when it comes to the captain's will, you Shiji has inherited a lot. Shiji smiled when he heard this and said, everyone has his own ambitions. Newgate laughed when he heard him respond with his own answer, and then asked, ever since you, bastard, ran away from Imperial, people on the sea have become very nervous. With you, I'm afraid your character won't be so quiet, right? Why did you come to me for a drink today? Let me guess, could it be that after this drink is over, you and I will have a fight and decide the winner? This division of victory is not about Newgate and Shiji dueling each other, but about the outcome of the two forces, Whitebeard and Golden Lion. It's not that Newgate is joking, he really thinks so. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to figure it out. Why did Shiji come to see him? Hearing Newgate's words, Shiji couldn't help laughing and said, yeah, people on the sea are guessing me Shiji wants to start a new round of war, but in fact, I said I came to say goodbye to you, do you believe it? Bid farewell, Newgate frowned slightly and murmured in confusion. Gee ha 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 ha, yes, farewell. Maybe it will be difficult for us to see each other again this time. As for the length of time, I think it will take more than 10 years, right? Shiji smiled and said. You bastard, what conspiracy are you planning? Newgate said without belief at all. Saying this, it makes me so chilled. Although we are rivals, we are somewhat of a friendship in the same boat. I, Shiji, will not lie to you about this kind of thing. Before leaving this sea, I just want to see you. Shiji waved his hand, picked up the wine bowl and took a sip. After hearing this, Newgate was silent for a while, and then he no longer doubted Shiji. Instead, he asked, what are you going to do? If I don't do anything, just think that I am going to live in seclusion, Shiji said casually. Newgate didn't go into details. He picked up the wine bowl and stretched it out to Shiji. Shiji also clinked a glass with Newgate in a tacit understanding, and then both of them drank the wine in one gulp. Then, Shiji threw away the wine bowl, stood up, stretched and said, as you get older, you just have to serve your age. Let's leave the sea to the young people for the time being. Fortunately, I have a good disciple, but you are. Shiji said, looking back at Newgate's men again, then with a proud smile on his face, he said, don't lose to Orgrimmar. Newgate twisted his lips, put on an arrogant smile, and said at the end of our parting, are you going to play such a boring joke on me? Who do you think I am? Gee ha 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 ha, goodbye. Shiji laughed loudly, his feet exuded an inexplicable energy, and then his whole body floated. Newgate didn't show any pretense. He waved his hands and said, I don't want to see you like this again. Annoying guy. In this way, Shiki and Newgate said goodbye. The two kings of the sea did not know if there would be a chance to meet again. At the same time, on the Fishman Island and Coral Hill under the Red Earth continent, in the port, Orgrim stepped off an ordinary pirate ship. Next to him were Vincent, the shipwright, and Sphinx, the little Lolita. As for the rest, they were still the same. He was doing his own thing. Orgrim looked up and looked at the flag hanging on the port. Sure enough, Newgate's domineering pirate flag was hanging on the port, symbolizing that this was the Whitebeard pirate. At the beginning of the Great Pirate Age, Fishman Island was in great chaos. Countless pirates poured in here like crazy, and then burned, killed, looted, and committed all kinds of evil. Until Newgate's flag appeared here, now, order has been restored to Coral Hill, and it looks like it is very peaceful. Do you think my flag is as intimidating as that guy with white beard? Just throwing it away can keep a place safe? Orgrim asked with a smile. Vincent didn't bother to respond to Orgrim at all, but Sphinx said enthusiastically, not necessarily, but if you, Mr. Hammer, go and defeat Newgate, then the flag of our Warhammer pirates will be famous all over the world. When the time comes, wherever you want to demarcate as our territory, just demarcate it. Orgrim stretched out his hand and knocked the Sphinx on the head, and said helplessly, you guy, you are trying to trick me all day long to fight this and that. Even if I have 9 lives, it is not enough for you to act so pretentiously. Ha 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 ha, are you scared? The Sphinx asked with a laugh. Orgrim glared at the Sphinx, and then said, afraid? I am the source of chaos, Hosgarot Orgrim. Is there anything in this world that I would be afraid of? After a short pause, Orgrim continued, it's just that I don't want to do anything useless, and, although I am very confident in my own strength now, I am not sure of defeating Newgate. Before that, I will resist the desire to challenge him and win the title of the strongest in the world. When the time is right, I will hit and win. Hey, you're the best at bragging, the Sphinx said with great disdain. Orgrim blew his beard and glared angrily, cursing and saying, am I bragging? Well, don't you want me to fight Newgate? You call that guy to the Eternal Night Sea and see if I don't teach him how to behave. Ha 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 ha, Mr. Chewie, how dare you be so arrogant in the Evernight Sea, the Sphinx mocked. Orgrim grabbed her twin ponytails angrily, and then pulled her back and forth in his hands, causing the Sphinx to curse. As for what the Sphinx said, Orgrim didn't care. This is actually true. In the Sea of Eternal Night, he, Orgrim, was fearless. Even if Newgate came in person, Orgrim would dare to fight him for 300 rounds with his hammer. No matter how victorious he is, he will never give up. But after leaving the Eternal Night Sea, Orgrim is indeed a little unsure, and he is not afraid of being embarrassed by saying it. Orgrim thinks that although he has stepped into the realm of strength, the top level, but whether it is Charlotte Lingling or Kaido, he has no absolute confidence in being able to defeat them, let alone Whitebeard, who is the strongest in the world. Therefore, he will not do anything meaningless, he must challenge him. After all, he is no longer the same person as he used to be. At that time, it didn't matter if he challenged Newgate. If he lost, Shiki would be there to take care of him. Now Orgrim is considered to be on its own, with Kaido and Charlotte indistinctly Lingling and Whitebeard compete. It's easy to say that he won, but it would be very embarrassing if he lost. It would also have a great adverse impact on his various arrangements and plans, especially with the Warhammer pirates. There are some major discrepancies in the development direction. Instead of this, he hopes to stay dormant for a while, hide his strength and bide his time, and steadily increase his strength. After all, he is the youngest among the 4, and time and era are all on his side. As long as he is given enough time, there is nowhere in the world that he cannot go. Of course, again, no one will mess with him. Orgrim will naturally be like this. If someone has to open his eyes, he doesn't mind getting angry. Recently, Orgrim has been a little upset. It's none other than the Big Mom pirates, who seem to be testing him. This makes Orgrim feel sad. He also has some thoughts and precautions. He doesn't want to cause trouble, but if that damn old woman from Big Mom insists on having trouble with him, Orgrim, he doesn't mind taking action on her. but things haven't reached that level yet, so what can I say about Warhammer? The pirate group is still very powerful in terms of momentum. With Orgrim and Shiji sitting in charge, Charlotte Lingling did not dare to act rashly in a short period of time. Walking to the port while chatting and laughing, she saw a familiar person. The fat blue man was standing in front of the port, waiting for Orgrim. Yes, after all, Orgrim came to Fishman Island as a guest to discuss business, not to cause trouble. In his capacity, if he suddenly came to Fishman Island without saying hello, it would be a bit inappropriate and would scare Neptune. So before coming, Orgrim had already contacted Jinbei, the cute fat blue guy. At this time, Jinbei came to greet him. After seeing Orgrim's figure, Jinbei had a simple and honest smile on his face, and quickly walked up to him and said, "Boss Orgrim, welcome to Fishman Island." "Gee ha 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 ha, Jinbei, it's been a long time since I last saw you. How are you doing lately? Are you interested in working for me? As per the old rules, my position as a senior coder is reserved for you." Orgrim laughed and said, and patted Jinbei's shoulder very familiarly. Hearing this, Jinbei smiled helplessly and said, "Boss Orgrim, what do you want me to say, to answer or not to answer?" "Gee ha 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 ha, it's just a joke. Isn't it sweet to be strong? But it's still the same old rule. I admire you very much. If you change your mind in the future, remember to consider me first," Orgrim said with a laugh. Sure, Jinbei smiled and responded, and then said, "His Majesty Neptune has already prepared a banquet in Ryago City, and he is waiting for you, Boss Orgrim. It just so happens that I also have something that I want to talk to King Neptune about. This is something that is beneficial to both of us. Let's go. Don't make King Neptune wait in a hurry. I, Orgrim, don't understand the etiquette." "Same," Orgrim said with a smile. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 253. In the magnificent palace of Dragon Palace City, Orgrim was sitting next to Neptune. The banquet is in progress, with countless food and wine from the deep sea filling the table, and beautiful mermaid ladies dancing gracefully in the center of the banquet. Although Orgrim had been to Fishman Island several times, this was his first time entering Dragon Palace City, and it was also his first time meeting Neptune. While eating and drinking, Orgrim also secretly looked at Princess Odohim sitting on the other side of Neptune. Don't get me wrong, it's not that Orgrim covets Princess Odohim, he just feels a little curious. After all, Neptune is as tall as a giant in the sea, and Princess Odohim looks much smaller than a normal person. How did these two guys get together? How did you give birth to so many children? At first, Orgrim didn't know much about Fishman Island and thought that they might reproduce by laying eggs, which would be no problem and had nothing to do with their body shape. But later, Orgrim also discovered that both mermaids and fishmen are viviparous. Just like humans, they also need to be pregnant for 10 months. After all, this is not a secret, and it will be clear after a little digging. After knowing this fact, Orgrim could no longer look directly at Neptune and Odohim. As expected, they are two great men who were able to give birth to the king of the sea, Poseidon. I admire them. Just as Orgrim was thinking about these trivial things, Neptune smiled, picked up the wine glass, and stretched out his hand to Orgrim. "Lord Orgrim, although this is the first time we have met, your kindness will always be engraved in our hearts on Murloc Island," Neptune said with a smile. Orgrim also raised his wine glass and clinked it with Neptune very wisely, and then said with a smile, "Your Majesty Neptune, there is no need to be so polite, we all have our own needs, of course, putting aside other factors, I do have a lot of goodwill towards Fishman Island." After coming to Dragon Palace City, Orgrim realized that the batch of arms he sold to them had brought a lot of help to Fishman Island during the chaotic period when the Great Pirate Age began. Therefore, both Neptune and Jinbei have a very favorable impression of Orgrim. As for Orgrim himself, regardless of these factors, he also has a favorable impression of Murloc Island. On the one hand, it is because of the relationship between Murloc Island and he has almost no potential threats. In addition, this place is like a paradise on Earth. There are so many beautiful mermaid girls swimming in the sea. It is pleasing to the eye no matter how you look at it. Normally, this must have good intentions. In addition, on the one hand, it is because Orgrim feels that the people and the ruling class of Fishman Island are very naive. Although such naive people are a bit stupid, who wouldn't like them? Ha 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 ha, that's really our honor. Neptune laughed and said. At the same time, Princess Otohim also looked at Orgrim and said with emotion, if the people on the sea were like you, Lord Orgrim, they would treat us fishmen. It would be nice if I had good intentions. As soon as she finished speaking, Neptune glanced at Princess Otohim with some dissatisfaction, as if blaming her for suddenly bringing up these embarrassing topics. Speaking of which, Princess Otohim has not yet been martyred, so Neptune has not inherited Princess Otohim's will. If you really think about it, Neptune has a deep rejection of sea society. Orgrim nodded to Princess Otohim, but did not have any thoughts on this. In fact, although Orgrim admired the princess who was able to give birth to the king of the sea, Poseidon, he could not help but suspect that there was something wrong with her brain. What a wonderful Fishman Island, Princess Otohim insists on raising the island to the sea. Isn't this a joke? If this rises to the sea, it is because of the long-cherished wish of Fishman Island for hundreds of years, and the agreement made with that guy Joey Boy more than 800 years ago. It's understandable, but Princess Otohim always fantasizes about integrating into the human society on the sea. This gave Orgrim a toothache. They were not of the same race. It would be difficult to integrate into the same society, and even the gains would outweigh the losses. Of course, this is their pursuit, and Orgrim doesn't want to say anything more. But Princess Otohim's methods would make Orgrim vomit blood. She actually pursued using love and understanding to accomplish this, and Orgrim was really speechless. In Orgrim's view, this kind of thing should obviously be based on equal communication and mutual respect. And where does this foundation come from? Do you still need to ask? In this chaotic world, only strength can bring equality and respect. Relying on the idea of love and understanding, begging for equality and respect is not realistic, and it is rootless water. It all depends on other people's faces. If someone is in a good mood today, he should understand you. If another day a fish dies in his house and he is in a bad mood, he may not understand you. In the end, isn't it that you have to suffer every day for 3 days? What to do on the sea? Even if you want to go, you have to rely on strength to reach the sea. In Orgrim's view, the Fishman Island has this kind of strength. Their racial talents are extremely powerful and they are born to be the proud sons of the ocean. However, for hundreds of years, the Fishman Island has not had anything big. Progress and change. In the end, Orgrim could only comment on the nonsense that happened on Fishman Island and said, "You deserve it." Seeing that Orgrim seemed to have no interest in talking about this, Princess Otohim stopped worrying about anything. Neptune was very sensible and changed the subject with a smile. "I heard from Jinbei that Lord Orgrim came here this time to discuss business with our Fishman Island. Or is it a business that is beneficial to both of us?" When Orgrim heard this, he took a sip of the wine from the deep sea and then laughed loudly and said, "That's right, Your Majesty Neptune, I have to admit that Fishman Island is mine. One of my favorite islands, and I have been to Fishman Island several times. I had a very good experience here, so I have a very positive view of Fishman Island, and I really like dealing with you. This time I came here just for a business that can benefit both parties." "Lord Orgrim, please speak," Neptune smiled and said. Gee ha 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 ha, has it become a lot safer since the Newgate flag was hung here? Orgrim smiled and asked. Neptune also had a smile on his face, nodded and said, I and Newgate have been friends for a long time. After I was in trouble on Murloc Island, I quickly came to help. As you can see, Lord Orgrim, Murloc Island is much better now than it was then. Orgrim nodded and understood that Neptune was showing him his backer, but Orgrim had no intention of causing trouble here. Originally I wanted to come and help, but I was afraid that I would come too unexpectedly and make both of us a little embarrassed. I am also very sorry for what happened to Fishman Island before. After all, I have a share in it, Orgrim said apologetically at first. Neptune didn't expect Orgrim to lower his profile. After all, Orgrim was now one of the 5 bosses among the pirates. Therefore, Neptune quickly waved his hand and said, Lord Orgrim, there is no need to be like this. We also know that you are not to blame for this matter. Orgrim did not continue to dwell on this, but instead said, let me see, although Fishman Island has restored order due to the flag of the Whitebeard pirates, but, facing the impact of this great pirate era, you should have your own strength. What do you think about Neptune? Of course. Neptune said without hesitation. Then let me tell you good news, Your Majesty. We, the Warhammer pirates, now control part of the arms business in the Dark World. This is different from our previous transactions. This time, we can produce it ourselves, Orgrim smiled evilly and said. Neptune was stunned for a moment, and then quickly asked, I wonder what the output is, and what is the quality? Orgrim picked up the wine glass and took a sip, then said very confidently, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying come to promote something. To be honest, the output is so large that you, Fishman Island, can't even eat it. This quality is also a top-notch product on the market. I came here this time just to use arms as a stepping stone to make Fishman Island and Fishman Island I am Avalon, building a friendly relationship. Neptune was obviously even more excited after hearing Orgrim's words. According to what Orgrim meant, it means that once this business can be negotiated, Murloc Island will have a steady stream of weapons to equip it. Are they still top-notch products? Thinking again that the batch of arms sold to them by Orgrim had played a great role in the wave of the Great Pirate era, Neptune felt a little hot in his heart. He doesn't trust the humans on the sea, so he wants to have the powerful power of Ulu Island to protect his subjects. But before that, humans on the sea also did not trust Fishman Island. Therefore, through formal channels, even if Fishman Island is one of the participating countries under the world government, it is difficult to obtain the qualifications to purchase arms from the world government. In addition, in the deep sea, Fishman Island is very lacking in technology when it comes to hot weapons such as gunpowder, which is not conducive to production. As a result, for hundreds of years, Fishman Island has mainly fought with cold weapons. Neptune can naturally see the difference between firearms and cold weapons, so he also hopes to equip his army with firearms on a large scale to defend against pirates who want to plot evil on Fishman Island. We on Murloc Island are also happy to cooperate with you, Lord Orgrim, and with Avalon to build a friendly relationship, Neptune said without hesitation. Even if there are no firearms, Neptune does not want to offend Orgrim. If Orgrim is willing to make friends, he will of course be extremely happy. After all, times have changed. Orgrim was when he first came to Fishman Island, Neptune could still pretend and didn't see Orgrim. But now, Orgrim has become a being that needs him to look up to, and he can compete with Orgrim. It's naturally good to have a relationship with Orgrim. Didn't you see that it was precisely because Neptune and Whitebeard had a good relationship that Fishman Island stabilized under the wave of the Great Pirate Age? Now he has a relationship with Orgrim. And become friendly partners, then maybe the Fishman Island will encounter some difficulties in the future. Orgrim, the big boss, can easily lift the crisis on the Fishman Island with just a few clicks of his fingers. What's more, there are fish in it. Where is the arms business that Man Island urgently needs? He expressed his position first, and then asked, having said that, I don't know, Lord Orgrim, what do you need from our Murloc Island? Gee ha 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 ha, it's nothing, don't worry too much, I just want to open up direct channels between our two families. Orgrim laughed. Thanks to the bosses for the reward, there will still be more updates today. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 254. Neptune listened to Orgrim's words, nodded slightly, and then asked, I wonder what channel it is. If there is any exchange, I will speak directly. Our island of Avalon is full of waste and is waiting to be revitalized. Soon, there will be a large influx of people. And in the Evernight Sea, there is nothing that can support the island of Avalon before. If I want to build Avalon Island, it needs to have certain characteristics and a lot of funds. After thinking about it over and over again, I finally feel that Fishman Island can become the characteristic of Avalon, Orgrim said with a smile. Neptune frowned slightly and asked softly, could it be that Lord Orgrim wants us from the Murloc Island to migrate to Avalon? On this point, although Neptune wanted to cooperate with Orgrim, it's a relationship, but I definitely can't agree. Orgrim waved his hand and said, Your Majesty Neptune, you have misunderstood. I am a very measured person. I have no intention of interfering with the development and ideas of Fishman Island. I just want the specialties of Fishman Island to be preserved. It's just for sale in Avalon to form a stable trading area and make this place the characteristics of Avalon. Neptune breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this explanation. At this time, he also understood Orgrim's thoughts. Fishman Island had almost no connection with any island on the sea, which was only slightly related to the Shampoo Islands. Therefore, there is no place to sell specialties on Fishman Island on the sea. If you want to get the specialties in the deep sea, you have to take great risks to come to Fishman Island. Even these businesses are illegal and belong to smuggling. What Orgrim meant was that Avalon would have a monopoly on the specialties of Fishman Island. Exchange needs with Fishman Island and build a good cooperative relationship. Just imagine, because Avalon is the territory of pirates now, and Orgrim's prestige is there, very few large business groups come to Avalon to do business. Therefore, Avalon's economy is almost entirely supported by the chaotic business of pirates. But this kind of power is not enough to meet Orgrim's needs. He can't always rely on business in the dark world to transfuse blood to Avalon. He hopes that Avalon can bring him beneficial feedback. Once he can monopolize the specialties of Murloc Island in Avalon and open up the channels between the deep sea and the sea, then business groups from the sea will inevitably flock in. Don't say pirates or not, as long as the profits are big enough, these crazy businessmen don't mind hanging their heads on their pants to do business. And from now on, Orgrim is also preparing to set rules to protect those merchants doing business in Avalon. Using the unique deep-sea specialties as bait, Orgrim has reason to believe that Avalon will become truly prosperous in just a few years. This matter is not only good for Orgrim, but also good for the Warhammer pirates. Neptune also strongly agrees. Their Fishman Island is now unable to communicate with the sea. These treasures, which can be seen everywhere in the deep sea, are snatched by everyone on the sea. Once this channel is opened, the economy of Fishman Island can also develop rapidly. With a large number of bailies, Neptune can naturally strengthen the power of Fishman Island. Apart from anything else, if you make money and resell it, you can buy arms from Orgrim, increase the strength of the army, and protect the rights and interests of Fishman Island. This is not a loss no matter how you think about it. Therefore, Neptune nodded without hesitation. If you, Lord Orgrim, have this idea, our Murloc Island is willing to fully cooperate. Gee ha 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 ha, let me just say, this is something that is very beneficial to both of us. Orgrim laughed. Then, he stretched out his hand towards the Sphinx beside him and said, Give me the plan. The Sphinx was holding a huge scallop at this time, and his mouth was full of oil. After hearing Orgrim's words, he frowned in displeasure, and then wiped his oily hands on his body. He didn't look like a person at all. A delicate girl, but a little sloppy. But she didn't care. After wiping it, she took out a stack of documents from the bag beside her, put 2 mimeographs on them, and handed them to Ogre. Mew. Orgrim looked at the oily paw prints on the document with some toothache, and glared at the unreliable little guy Sphinx fiercely. But Sphinx had no intention of paying attention to him. In a blink of an eye, he hugged the scallop and continued to eat. Orgrim looked at Neptune with some embarrassment, handed the plan over and said, "I'm sorry for making you laugh, Your Majesty, my little Lolita, not sensible at all." "Ha ha 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 ha, Lord Orgrim, please don't say that. I think Sphinx is very straightforward and cute," Neptune said with a smile, and took the plan without hesitation. Then he opened it and read it carefully. The cooperation between the two parties was clearly written in it, and there was Orgrim's signature on it. After reading it carefully, Neptune once again felt the sincerity of Orgrim. As the famous source of chaos and a great pirate with a bounty of nearly 3 billion, there was no intention of relying on his power in this plan. The meaning of bullying him on the Fishman Island. Everything was written clearly and almost all were constructed on the premise of mutual respect. This greatly changed Neptune's perception of Orgrim. Previously, although Neptune I also have a good impression of Orgrim, but Orgrim's name is too evil after all. He is the Skull Crusher, the enemy of humanity, and the source of chaos. He is also known as the most brutal and evil pirate in history. Neptune was of course a little uneasy. But now, he felt that these were the world government's slanders against him, Orgrim. Orgrim was obviously a very kind, polite, and generous man. "I am willing to use my identity and strength to bully the weak and good people." Because Neptune also knows very well that Fishman Island cannot resist Orgrim in this kind of matter. Even with Whitebeard standing behind him, Orgrim will still he could force Fishman Island to do these businesses, and it would be nice if he could leave some scraps for Fishman Island to eat. But he didn't do this, but responded to Fishman Island with an attitude of respect and equality. This made Neptune feel very sad. Touched. After closing the plan in his hand, Neptune looked at Orgrim with great emotion and said, "Thank you, Lord Orgrim. I saw full sincerity and goodwill in this plan. You respect our Fishman Island so much, and our Fishman Island will definitely repay you with the same or even more respect. I think this plan is very good. Tomorrow I will be the king of the Fishman Island and the lord of the Dragon Palace City. Officially announcing our cooperative relationship to the entire Fishman Island." Orgrim was stunned for a moment, then waved his hand and said, "It doesn't have to be like this, right? Your Fishman Island, after all, is also one of the participating countries under the world government. If you make such a big show of it, it might be detrimental to you." Neptune said very grandly, "Thank you Lord Orgrim for your concern, but the relationship between our Fishman Island and the world government is not very good. Since I dare to bring down the Whitebeard pirates, if the flag is hung on Dragon Palace City, how can we be afraid of this world government? Lord Orgrim, if you treat me with sincerity, I will naturally treat you with sincerity." Orgrim saw that Neptune was so grand, so he didn't say anything and agreed with a smile. After settling this important matter, the banquet became more enjoyable, and Orgrim drank again good wine, delicious food, chatting and laughing with Neptune. "Your Majesty Neptune, is Fishman Street still in chaos now?" Orgrim asked while drinking wine. After hearing this question, Neptune smiled bitterly and said, "To tell you the truth, it is indeed the case, and it is even more confusing." "That's it," Orgrim murmured. "In the final analysis, the chaos in Fishman Street is due to the shortage of jobs. There are a large number of fishermen orphans who have little education and are naturally rude, so they cannot do many jobs. As for the size of Fishman Island, it cannot provide a large number of coolie jobs. Therefore, In order to survive, the fishmen in Fishman Street have no choice but to go into chaos and rely on deception, abduction, robbery, and other means to survive with difficulty. Hundreds of thousands of fishmen form the largest chaotic neighborhood on Fishman Island, seriously affecting the order and safety of Fishman Island. At this time, Orgrim is also trying to attract the attention of these guys. Fishman Island cannot provide them with enough positions, but Avalon can. It won't take too long, as Shiji and Beckman will get them. With the addition of islands, the population of Avalon will inevitably increase dramatically. At that time, large-scale construction projects will be restarted. These strong fishmen, who are 10 times more powerful than ordinary humans, would rather work for Orgrim than harming the Fishman Island here. 996 blessings, no matter what, it's better than being a gangster in Fishman Street, right? As for the small flaws of these fishmen, such as being rude and violent. Orgrim turned his head and glanced at the Sphinx, who was tearing pieces of sea beast meat with his hands, and thought a little funny, no matter how good these fishmen are, can they be as arrogant as the Sphinx? When the time comes, this little lowly will be arranged to be the foreman of a group of strong men, and she will ensure that those guys are submissive. Thinking of this, Orgrim smiled and said, "Your Majesty Neptune, maybe there is room for cooperation between us on the issue of Fishman Street." "Oh? Lord Orgrim, please speak," Neptune said curiously. "That's right, Avalon, are in short supply of labor. I think the fishmen have a great advantage in this regard, so," Orgrim spoke. Before he could finish his words, the phone in Vincent's arms rang when he was eating. After answering the phone, Vincent's face instantly became very gloomy. Then he turned to look at Orgrim and said, "Master Hammer, something happened." Orgrim was stunned for a moment, then frowned and said, "What's up?" "World government, my eldest brother was investigated and sentenced to death for building a ship for Roger," Vincent said a little irritably. Orgrim's eyes became slightly gloomy, and then he said, "How is Master Tom?" "Fortunately, my eldest brother really didn't even know to contact me before. This matter fell through, so he contacted me." He described his sea train idea to the world government, and the world government suspended his proposal. The death penalty requires him to study the maritime train first and then make a conclusion, Vincent said quickly. Orgrim smiled and said, "That means that Master Tom is not in danger for the time being. Don't be too anxious. The sea train cannot be built in a short time. Yes, the more deeply we are involved with Master Tom, the less the world government will tolerate him." "Well, I get it." Vincent nodded and said, "Alas, Master Tom is also stubborn. I have told him to come and live in Avalon. We can completely protect his safety, but he just doesn't listen and doesn't know what's so good about the City of Seven Waters," Orgrim couldn't help but muttered. Vincent smiled and said this time, he should understand the danger of the world government. Maybe he will change his mind after a while. I will find an opportunity to remind him then. "Well, that's up to you," Orgrim said. Then, he turned around and talked to Neptune about what happened just now. As for Master Tom, he is not in danger for the time being, and Vincent just made a notice to let him be mentally prepared. So Orgrim has no plans to take care of this matter for the time being. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 255. Orgrim personally came to Fishman Island this time to show his sincerity and respect. After all, in his plan, the specialties of the Fishman Island and the strong men of the Fishman tribe were all very valuable, so it was not appropriate to use force. Mutual respect and cooperative development are more in line with Orgrim's ideas. What's more, Fishman Island is still flying the Whitebeard flag. Orgrim is not afraid of Newgate, but for his opponent and the strongest man in the world, now the top pirate, Orgrim was still willing to give Newgate enough respect. Respecting Newgate as an opponent meant respecting himself. Similarly, Newgate will definitely give Orgrim enough respect. As long as there is no conflict of interest or feud between the two parties, if he does anything on Orgrim's territory, he must behave accordingly. This can be regarded as one of the unwritten rules among big pirates like them. However, this kind of thing rarely happens. Under normal circumstances, if the king does not see the king, no one will get into the territory of an old rival for no reason. It's just that this Fishman Island is a bit special. After all, it connects the first half of the Grand Line with the New World. Even if Newgate demarcates it as his territory, he can't be too unrestrained there, otherwise the pirates in the New World will have a plan. Except for one who can fly across the Red Earth continent, he will have trouble getting through it. No matter how strong he is, he can't hold it back. Orgrim also negotiated with Nipton about the issue of Fishman Street. When Avalon started construction, Neptune allowed the Warhammer pirates to recruit 30,000 fishmen in Fishman Street as the first phase of cooperation attempts. If Avalon and Fishman Street can accept each other, Neptune will be very happy to send all the fishmen from Fishman Street to Avalon to work, to prevent them from causing trouble everywhere on Fishman Island. At the same time, this kind of cooperation can be regarded as opening a door to the sea. Although Neptune disagrees with Princess Odohim's naive ideas, he is also willing to try something. Anyway, if it fails, he has nothing to do with it. Loss. On the contrary, this kind of attempt can also stop Princess Odohim's chattering mouth, so as not to talk about these messy things in his ears all day long, saying that he does not do anything. Does this affect the relationship between the couple? Orgrim also agreed with both hands. After all, if Neptune divorced Princess Odohim, would Poseidon be alive? After living on Fishman Island for half a month, Orgrim became a frequent visitor to Ryago City, and his relationship with the Neptune royal family became very good, and he also accumulated a good friendship with Jinbe. After that, he did not continue wandering around. After finishing the matter on Fishman Island, he returned to Avalon, and also received news from Beckman on the way. Shiki and Beckman selected some suitable islands around the world and moved all of them directly to the surroundings of Avalon. Now that this matter has been completed, the next step is to use certain means and time to integrate the people on these islands with Avalon to form a whole. This is not too urgent. It needs to be simmered slowly. Grimm felt relieved and left this matter to Beckman. As for Shiji, he didn't stay in Avalon. He is now deliberately reducing his influence on the Warhammer pirates out of respect for Orgrim. If he stays in Avalon for too long, who will the members of the Warhammer pirates listen to? It's true that Orgrim is the captain in name, but is Shiki still Orgrim's teacher? In order not to make it difficult for Orgrim, Shiji left in a measured manner. He was going to live in seclusion. When he comes out again, it will probably be many years later. By then, his influence will have dropped a lot, and he will not. There is no disadvantage to Orgrim anymore. Originally, all these important things were on the right track step by step, and Orgrim was quite happy. Today he was on the deck blowing the sea breeze, basking in the sun, and fishing in the sea with a fishing rod in his hand. The mood was very happy, but the result was good. A newspaper completely made Orgrim's happy mood disappear. It's not that something big happened in the world, but someone called him Orgrim in the newspaper. Damn it, are those bastard scholars like O'Hara too full to have anything to do? Always like to be nosy? Or do you think I, Orgrim, have a too good temper? That was the case in Alabasta, when they took the lead in slandering me as the public enemy of mankind, and this time too, didn't they just grab a few islands? What's wrong with a big pirate like me doing something like this? Why didn't you watch them accuse Newgate of massacring the city and destroying the country? Scolding Kaido for taking over Wano? Scolding Charlotte Lingling for collecting soul tax on her own territory? Orgrim looked at the newspaper in his hand and cursed. Yes, it was a group of O'Hara's scholars in the newspaper who were denouncing Orgrim, saying that he was the destroyer of culture, the enslaver of civilization, and that he scolded him for what he had done in Alabasta in the early years, opening and closing his mouth to call him the enemy of mankind. It was as if he was not tolerated in Orgrim. He had all the names of the most brutal pirate, the most evil pirate, and so on. Throw it at him. Ha ha ha, is this considered famous? Sphinx laughed and said. Orgrim looked down again, and yelled again helplessly, what the hell, they can also find out what happened in the Golden Land. Sure enough, the newspapers scolded Orgrim again for destroying the Golden Land, an ancient relic of great cultural and archaeological importance. It's not that they ran to the empty island and discovered this. It was because of Avalon's constant construction, selling a lot of the wealth in the Golden City. Those Athi pirates were rich and bought a lot of antique gold from Sandora, the land of gold, on the black market. When they brought it back and examined it, they discovered the secrets inside. Then they understood that the Warhammer pirates had taken the land of gold, Sandora. Sandora found it and was still selling it. In the eyes of these historians, this is simply lawless. Therefore, they seized this opportunity to scold Orgrim in the newspapers. These bastards just scolded me, but they didn't investigate clearly. The Golden Land is an old settlement from the time of Boss Shiji. I just accepted the inheritance. How come it became my fault, Orgrim? Orgrim complained fiercely. After all, you found the land of gold, so you're not mistaken, the Sphinx said gloatingly. The same goes for that bastard Beckman. He couldn't find any island, so he insisted on moving O'Hara's neighbor away, so that all these scholars knew about it. Orgrim cursed again helplessly. Originally, it was not a big deal for his Warhammer pirates to acquire some islands and populations in the sea. It is estimated that not many people will pay attention to it, and O'Hara's group of scholars may not care about these things. But the problem is that Beckman and Shiji went to O'Hara in the West Sea and moved an island that was closely related to O'Hara. O'Hara is the island of scholars. The entire island is not large, and its population is not particularly large. Many of them are scholars who come to O'Hara for pilgrimage and further study. The hometown of many of them is that island. After all, they are so close, so naturally they have been influenced by culture since childhood. The result was good. They were studying well at O'Hara. They talked with a group of cultural bigwigs all day long. They felt so uncomfortable. When they turned around, their home was gone. My wife, children, parents, elders, relatives, and friends have all been moved away. Is this such a big deal? Madly cursing the Warhammer pirates and Orgrim in the newspaper. Oh, urge the world government to bring Lao Tzu to justice as soon as possible. Maintain the rights and legal dignity of the participating countries under the world government. When Orgrim saw this sentence, he put on a disdainful sneer on his face. These O'Hara scholars are really shameless. On the surface, they look like good people, but they keep talking about laws and, the world government wants the world government to kill itself as soon as possible to safeguard the interests of the participating countries and the dignity of the law. Behind the scenes, aren't these scholars seriously violating the law? The world government has repeatedly issued orders, emphasizing that no one should study the blank 100 years ago. Years of history, and ancient texts. Regardless of whether there are problems with this law, it is a law after all. Since it was passed by the World Conference, it has corresponding legal principles. And guys like O'Hara, eating the dividends of the world government, enjoying the legal protection and respected treatment of scholars by the world government, it has been arranged by the world government to become a holy place for scholars and historians. There is indeed O'Hara's own ability in this, but I have to admit that the world government must have given considerable support. The results of it? They picked up the bowl to eat, put down the bowl and cursed. They support the laws that are beneficial to them with both hands, and ignore the laws that are detrimental to them. They secretly study ancient texts and historical texts behind their backs, and dig into the corners of the world government. Maybe they can find an honorable reason for themselves, that human history is a treasure that belongs to all mankind, and they are just looking for treasures. But in the final analysis, is it still illegal? It's okay now. I'm obviously not a good person, but I like to catch Orgrim and scold him. Isn't this hypocritical enough? A long time ago, Orgrim had a very good impression of O'Hara, but after coming to this world and truly coming into contact with it, the first thing he understood was that the world was not black and white. Justice, evil, light, darkness, etc. were not all lumped together. They are mixed with each other and become one body. Newgate is a big philanthropist secretly, isn't he? Whether it's O'Hara or the world government, they all have their own good and bad qualities, so how can we simply think that someone is a good person? Originally, I was too lazy to pay attention to these old scholars and just waited for them to seek their own death. Now they come to provoke me. Do you really think that I, Orgrim, won't get angry? Orgrim put the newspaper away and sneered. Calculating the time, O'Hara's crime was originally discovered next year. In a year at most, they should have been wiped out. But now, Orgrim prepared to add fuel to the fire to this matter and put it out as soon as possible. How? Master Zui, are you going to the West Sea to destroy O'Hara? Sphinx asked excitedly. Orgrim nodded and said, yes, I want to take care of these bastard scholars. They are full and have nothing to do all day long, so that they know, there is no one in the sea that you must not mess with. As soon as he finished speaking, Orgrim took out his phone and contacted Gangplank. Hello? Plank. I'm on my way back to Avalon. I'll be there soon, yes, Orgrim said a few words to him first. After a short pause, Orgrim continued, go and contact Stussy and tell her that I miss her very much, and when I go back, I want to have a drink with her. By the way, Mr. Hammer, we are already closing the net regarding the news about Douglas Barrett. I believe I will be able to give you a satisfactory answer when you come back, Plank said with a smile on the phone bug. Oh? Gee, ha 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 ha, have you finally found it? Very good. Orgrim laughed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 256. On the island of Eternal Night, Avalon, Orgrim has returned to his base camp. He had not left Avalon for too long, but at this time Avalon had changed drastically. First of all, the population was much larger, and there were 3 more islands around it. They were all very large, no less than the area of Avalon. Of islands. At the same time, there are a large number of people living on these 3 islands. Their national title will be revoked, all the royal family will be executed, and all the ruling class, including nobles, will be deposed. Orgrim looked at the document in his hand and said in a deep voice. It was impossible for him to directly let the power of the Warhammer pirates be dispersed. He had to gather them first and then make arrangements. All the countries on these islands would be destroyed, nominally destroyed. From now on, these subjects will also have to accept their status as people of Avalon. Well, I think so too, but these nobles should be looked at separately. They should be dismissed now, but they should be reused in the future. As long as they perform well, they should also be given a chance to regain power. Of course, the premise is that they are loyal to us, Beckman said with a smile. It must be said that Beckman and Shiji have a big appetite. These 4 islands have brought nearly a population of nearly 10 million to the entire sea area near Avalon. Although they are different from some superpowers, there is still no comparison, such as Alabasta or something. But in terms of the pirates' background, Orgrim has already surpassed Kaido in terms of the number of people under his rule, and is about to catch up with Charlotte Lingling. It is this population that he has not yet transformed into his own people. This will take some time to digest. Such a huge population cannot be managed by the cotters of the Warhammer pirates alone, so the aristocracy, it is still necessary to exist, but they have another boss above them. But we cannot give them these benefits casually. We must first beat these nobles, select those who can serve the Warhammer pirates, and promote them. They give them a certain amount of authority to help the Warhammer pirates rule over tens of millions of people. This also does not happen overnight and needs to be arranged slowly. Orgrim only needs to grasp the general direction and leave the rest to other cotters will do it. Throwing away the documents, Orgrim looked at Beckman angrily and said, "You and Boss Shiji have screwed me over. There are so many islands and countries in this sea. Why do you have to go to O'Hara?" As a result, 4 or 5 newspapers in a row are scolding me, saying that I am an enslaver of civilization. I want to enslave these countries, damn me. Beckman couldn't help laughing when he heard Orgrim's complaints. Ha 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 ha, you are not afraid of scolding because you have too many debts. The people of O'Hara are already at odds with you, a public enemy of mankind, so why should you care about their scolding? What's more, your reputation is not good to begin with. Why do you care about this? As long as our interests are maximized, that's all. Beckman joked with a smile. Orgrim thought to himself, no matter how bad my reputation is, I don't want to be scolded in the newspaper every day. But before Orgrim could complain or anything, Beckman said the kingdom of Charles next to O'Hara has a large population. The key is that the quality of its citizens is very high. They have been influenced by O'Hara's culture for hundreds of years. Do you know how high their literacy rate can be? More than 80% of the people can read and write, which has crushed most countries on the sea. To us, this is a group of people with certain knowledge and literacy. Let me ask you, do we need a group of civilians who know nothing and only know how to farm and fish, or do we need these people with certain cultural literacy? Orgrim opened his mouth, wanting to refute something, but in the end he nodded, reluctantly admitting that the scolding he received was well worth it. What Beckman said made sense. Knowledge and literacy were not considered in the previous life, which probably represents a diploma. After all, in this world, the level of education is generally not high, and many people can't afford to eat. How can they still study? They have tried their best to survive, so how can they still have time to study? Therefore, many of them end up throughout his life, he can only wander between farming and fishing. If he wants to master other skills and learn other people's skills, he must either master the relevant knowledge himself, or he must have a master's step-by-step guidance. Therefore, changing careers is not too important for him. It is very difficult for people who are multicultural and illiterate. At most, they are just working as coolies. From plowing fields to moving bricks, it is roughly like this. In the previous life, Orgrim suffered the loss of a diploma. Therefore, he understands the difficulties in this area. In his previous life, he was a whale hunter. It's not that he has never thought about changing careers, but there are no opportunities. And diplomas, although they cannot represent a person's good or bad, or the level of his or her achievements. But Orgrim, who has experienced severe beatings from society, also knows that this thing can represent more choices. Study hard and make progress every day. Although it is said badly, the truth is that students from Peking University and Tsinghua University, when facing the society, not to mention reaching the top in one step, but there are far more choices available to him than for people like Orgrim who came out of pheasant universities. This is a fact, but you can't be unconvinced. After all, others are also. I learned it based on my ability. I can only blame myself for being young and ignorant. Therefore, after Orgrim came to this world, even if his family was not rich, he still gritted his teeth and learned the words of this world. Even if he never went to school, he can read books. After joining Shiji's banner, he absorbed a lot of knowledge, which is incomparable with his previous life. Because of this, Orgrim knew very well that there was a group of people under his rule who could read and read. How important it is. They are the basis for spreading knowledge. Maybe some of them will become teachers and teach more people to read and read. Maybe there will be people who fill in various industries and through learning, become Avalon's the cornerstone. Although I don't mean to look down on farmers and fishermen, after all, Orgrim was a part-time whale hunter before he went to sea. But Orgrim also had to admit that from a realistic point of view, as long as the food supply in terms of value, these knowledgeable people are more valuable than farmers and fishermen, and they are more than twice as valuable. Okay, you are more thoughtful after all. I won't bother you with this anymore. That Stussy guy should be here already, waiting for me. I want to see her. Orgrim waved his hand and said. Beckman asked curiously, what did you do to see Stussy? Could it be that you are coveting other people's beauty? Will Orgrim send women? Covetous for beauty, Orgrim complained dissatisfiedly. Although Orgrim has no fixed partner so far, and the Warhammer pirates have no hostess, in fact, Orgrim's nightlife is still very rich. No, there are few beautiful beauties who are very happy to throw themselves into Orgrim's arms. Not to mention, Orgrim also has a group of beautiful and capable little maids. After saying goodbye to Beckman with a curse, Orgrim walked towards the palace where guests were received. At this time, Stussy was in the palace. She was sitting on a sofa, holding a small mirror in her hand, looking at her delicate face. He also had to take out cosmetics from his handbag to embellish it. She looked very ugly, but he had to admit that she was indeed very beautiful. If Orgrim didn't know that she was not the same person as him, he might have followed her. She has developed some relationships that go beyond friendship. Today, Stussy is in a very happy mood. Orgrim, that bastard, finally asked her to meet. Ever since he told her to get out last time, Stussy's mood has deteriorated. It's always been bad, but I finally got over it today. In the end, you still can't stand my charm. Are you rushing to see me as soon as you get back to Avalon? Stussy shook her head happily. Just when she was looking beautiful, Orgrim opened the palace door and walked in. Stussy also immediately put the small mirror and other women's items into her handbag. She stood up with a smile and took the lead in saying hello to Orgrim. After all, no matter how dissatisfied she was with Orgrim, she still had to do her job on the surface. Master Chewie, you really kept me waiting for a long time. Stussy said with a smile. After Orgrim saw Stussy, he also put on a kind smile on his face and said, gee ha 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 ha, Queen Stussy, it's been a long time no see. Yes, I miss you very much. With that said, before Stussy could speak, Orgrim continued apologetically, I'm so ashamed. Your happy street has also made a great contribution to our Avalon. We should have been closer to each other. But some time ago, I was really too busy. I heard Neiman say, how many times have you come to visit me? I'm really sorry that I couldn't take the time to see you, so as soon as I finished my work, I immediately thought of inviting you here to make a good apology to you. Stussy didn't expect Orgrim to have such a good attitude today, and the resentment in her heart also dissipated. She said with a smile, Master Hammer, you don't have to be like this. Of course I know that sometimes, we have to be busy. You really don't care about anything. Yes, we are all big shots, Orgrim said quickly. Then he was not polite and directly pulled Stussy to sit down. The two of them had a commercial blowjob, which made them both feel comfortable. As they chatted, Orgrim then said, have you read all the recent newspapers? Damn it, those bastard scholars at O'Hara are always bothering me when they're full and have nothing to do. Mr. Chewie, what is your identity? Do you deserve to be as knowledgeable as those idiots on the sidelines? Stussy comforted with a smile. I have a broad mind, which is fine, but I can't stand these bastards scolding me in the newspaper every day, right? Orgrim frowned and said. So Mr. Hammer, you want to deal with O'Hara? Stussy's eyes lit up and he asked. Orgrim sneered and said, I have such a big hand and personally bully a group of powerless scholars. If word spreads, I will be laughed at, but I can't do it without teaching them a lesson. Oh? Then Mr. Hammer, how do you plan to deal with them? Stussy raised her eyebrows and asked. Gee ha 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 ha, isn't your happy street in the intelligence business? I have some interesting information that I can sell to you. Orgrim said with an evil smile on his lips. Stussy was stunned for a moment, and then asked in surprise, what information? Aren't those idiots in the world government looking for those scholars who study ancient texts and historical texts on the sea? Don't you know where they came from? It just so happens that I know that I have a bad relationship with the world government, so I didn't bother to tell them these bullshit things before, but now that O'Hara has pissed me off, don't blame me for being rude. To tell you the truth, those who violated the ban scholars are all from O'Hara. You have information about the darkness in the happy street that connects the world government and pirates. You must be able to sell this information for a big price, right? You won't treat me badly, right? Orgrim looked at Stussy and said very evilly. At this time, Stussy was stunned. Damn it, I feel like I have a great achievement and am waving to my mother. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 257. Stussy was ecstatic in her heart, but remained calm on the surface. She raised her eyebrows slightly, showed a charming expression, and asked softly, Master Hammer, are you serious about this? Before Orgrim could speak, Stussy he quickly explained, it's not that I don't believe what you said, Master Chewie, but you may not know how much the world government attaches great importance to this. It seems that ancient texts are their deep taboos. The world government has pursued this matter many times. Years, but so far as I know, they've found nothing. To be honest, Mr. Hammer, there has always been a reward for this in the dark world. In the early years, the reward for this information was as high as 2 billion belly. Now, the bounty is 6 billion baileys. You know, this is just a piece of information. The world government's bounty system is very strange. Similar to Orgrim, the bounty is only over 2 billion, while Whitebeard's bounty is over 3 billion. Even for one piece Roger, the world government only gave out 5.5 billion in the end. It's only 64.8 million baileys. But the bounty amounts they put on many other things are simply outrageous. For example, for the surgical fruit, a few years later, the world government directly gave a bounty of 5 billion. The high price is advertised in the dark world. Looking at the same period as the surgical fruit, Kaido, Charlotte Lingling, and even Newgate's bounties are not as high as this surgical fruit. Can you say that they don't have the surgical fruit? Is it valuable? No, it can only be said that the world government has different definitions of bounties. Although the bounties for pirates are not small, the vast majority of big pirates who have reached more than 1 billion belly are almost never caught. The possibility of exchange for a bounty, so this bounty, just mean it? Otherwise, a man who can destroy the world, the pinnacle of pirates, and Whitebeard, who was only over 5 billion when he died. How? Do you think Marine Headquarters Marineford is not worth 5 billion, or do you think the destruction of this world is not worth 5 billion? Therefore, Orgrim was not surprised at all that the world government dared to offer a reward of 6 billion belly for just a piece of news. When he was in Bihai, billions of baileys were an astronomical figure. After he got more than 2 billion, he was so happy that he couldn't sleep at night. But now, he has already understood that even if a pirate force of their size sits at the top, when they really do big things, they often start with hundreds of billions of belly. The world government system is many times bigger than theirs, and Bailey's already has an astronomical figure that is unimaginable. It's only 6 billion. If they can find out the details of the taboo scholars they have been tracking for many years, they will definitely not be stingy. This Bailey is nothing. As long as Mr. Hammer, Your news is true. I will immediately ask Happy Street to invest 20 billion Baileys in Avalon. The gold content here is mainly in the relationship with the world government. Mr. Hammer, do you mind if I say that? Stussy smiled and continued. She has been in Avalon for so long and understands that it is impossible to hide everything from Orgrim. Avalon is gradually being taken over by the Warhammer pirates. Once the operation is started, the Warhammer pirates will definitely have tighter control over this place in the future. It is inevitable that they will find that there are inextricable connections between Happy Street and the world government. So Stussy, from the beginning, he has never concealed these things, and openly showed these traces to Orgrim, which shows that Happy Street not only eats pirates, but also eats the world government, and is a neutral force in the dark world. Therefore, Jujanai fake, even if Orgrim finds out something unexpected, Stussy can use this to get over it, and will not be directly recognized by Orgrim as a member of the world government. But she doesn't know that she has never, it was already exposed from the beginning. Gee ha 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 ha, of course I understand what you mean. After all, Happy Street is different from us pirates. You are doing Flower Street business with an open door to attract customers. Secretly, you are also a spy. There is no reason to only serve us evil pirates eat both sides. I can totally understand it, and I don't mean to mind it. After all, I would do the same thing if I were the home of Happy Street. Orgrim waved his hand domineeringly, indicating that he didn't mind. It's good that you can understand, Mr. Zui, but please don't worry, Mr. Zui, I will not spread the information about you casually. I am a very emotional person, Stussy said with a smile. Orgrim nodded with satisfaction, looking as if he was very pleased. In fact, what Stussy said was just a fart. We, Happy Street, are indeed interested in getting closer to the world government recently, but you also know that the world government is very concerned about its reputation. Happy Street's reputation is not good, and it is a neutral member of the dark world. Therefore, it is difficult to break through this step. If your information is true, Mr. Chui, then I may have hope, Stussy spoke again. Ha ha ha, don't worry, the information is naturally true. I learned this by accident. It is very simple to verify it. It is very difficult to track down these scattered scholars on the sea. It is difficult to find their roots. But if they have already assuming that the root cause is determined, it will be more than twice as easy to find their flaws, right? You Happy Street, just go to O'Hara to investigate and follow some suspicious members. It won't be long before the results should be achieved, which will naturally prove whether what I said is true or false. Orgrim said with an evil smile. Stussy also nodded, agreeing with this theory. To put it simply, this is an algorithm that works backwards from the results. If you know the results, you can work backwards. The process is naturally much simpler. It is not that the world government has not thought about these things before. But for O'Hara, they are not very suspicious. Although O'Hara is a holy place for archaeologists, it cannot completely represent in the world of archaeology, which big country doesn't have archaeologists. Alabasta has a lot of historians, and their level of education and knowledge are not inferior to O'Hara's, but their reputation is not that great. This is okay, understand. After all, Alabasta itself has a very long history, and it is reasonable to be able to cultivate these talents. In fact, what the world government has been doubting before is Alabasta, and they have never thought about O'Hara. After all, O'Hara LA's performance is very good. On the surface, they have always been die-hard supporters of the world government, enjoying the support of the world government and supporting the legal system of the world government. Who the hell would have thought that there is such filth in it? What's more, the world government also has some preconceptions, thinking that if they dare to investigate this obviously taboo history, it seems that they are not afraid of going against their world government, so the other party should have very strong strength to support it. O'Hara, what kind of thing is it? To put it bluntly, it's just a big little island without even a little armed force. Theoretically speaking, as long as those scholars haven't had their brains eaten by dogs, they have no reason to dare to come out and go against their world government. On the contrary, Alabasta has a strong enough military force and is a superpower and military power in the world. Their royal family, the Nefertali clan, is one of the descendants of the 20 kings. They have noble blood and belong to that group. An existence that can compete with the world government. Therefore, the world government has actually been suspecting and investigating Alabasta on this matter. However, until now, no conclusion has been drawn. What is really unexpected is that the scholars who pulled this have really had their brains eaten by dogs. They have no great skills, so they dare to risk their lives and secretly fight against the world government. Because of this, when the world government really found out that the mastermind behind the scenes was O'Hara, on the contrary, he breathed a sigh of relief. A mere demon-slaying order solved the matter directly without any big fight. If this matter were brought to Alabasta, it would not be so easy to solve, and it might start a series of problems. This is a large-scale war that even affects the relationship between the various participating countries and the world government. Considering the intricate bloodlines and entanglements of the Nefertali family, it is hard to say that in the end it will be lifted up high, dropped gently, and caught at will. Just name the scapegoat. The real problem cannot be solved at all. After gradually calming down his emotions, Stussy also said a little strangely, as far as I know, O'Hara's relationship with the world government has always been very good. Is an archaeological holy site designated by the world government, and O'Hara has little armed force and is extremely weak. It has always been sheltered by the world government. Will their scholars really risk such rudeness to study ancient texts and historical texts that are expressly prohibited by the world government? How dare they? What is the reliance? Mr. Hammer? Is there any conspiracy behind this? Gee ha 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 ha, Orgrim laughed. Then he said, because these idiots are pretending to be smart and arrogant. They probably have too high a status in the cultural world for more than 100 years, and they can't see themselves clearly. After a short pause, Orgrim said, he laughed and scolded, let me ask you, even if the world government dares to scold me every day in the newspaper? And those marshals and generals in the navy, give him the courage to be a marshal of the navy, would he dare? Stussy, he was stunned for a moment, then instinctively shook his head and said, I don't think I dare. That's right, because they all know that I'm not easy to mess with. If I go crazy, I can turn the whole world upside down. So as long as I don't show up, no one dares to provoke me first. The world government and the navy want me to be quiet. Orgrim laughed and said. Then, Orgrim's face changed, and he said in a gloomy tone, but look at these scholars in O'Hara, are they better than the Marshal of the Navy, or better than the world? Is the government bolder? They dared to do things that the Marshal of the Navy did not dare to do. They dared to catch me scolding me in the newspaper for 4 or 5 times. See for yourself, can these idiots use normal logic to deduce? Stussy originally thought it was a little strange, but after listening to Orgrim's words, he seemed to understand something. Yes, normally, how could a group of powerless scholars dare to provoke again and again? A big boss like Orgrim who kills without blinking an eye? After all, the Navy headquarters is not willing to provoke Orgrim for any reason. Didn't you see that one of their generals was crippled and they didn't send troops to conquer Avalon? Now, thinking about it, it seems that it is because O'Hara has enjoyed such a high status in the world for more than 100 years that these scholars have lost their minds. Are they arrogant? Do they think that the world is so big that there is nothing they cannot do? As long as they occupy some moral high ground and can convince themselves with honorable reasons, they will dare to do anything. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 258. After having dinner together in the evening, Orgrim sent Stussy out of the Warhammer Pirates station with a smile on his face. To outsiders, it seems that the Happy Street represented by Stussy and the Warhammer Pirates represented by Orgrim have a very close relationship. Even many people in Avalon have rumors that Stussy is Orgrim's woman. To sum up, these two people are quite matched in terms of status. Orgrim never cared about such rumors. Stussy didn't know what he thought, and he never refuted the rumors. As for O'Hara's matter, Orgrim plans to leave it to the world government to figure out. It would be too stingy for him to go off and deal with O'Hara himself. What is his identity? What the hell is O'Hara? Although he was a little bored, the nature of this matter was like walking on the street and a wild dog kept barking at him, and he didn't even dare to come up and bite him. Is it because of this that Orgrim has to fight this wild dog on the street in front of the whole world? Even if O'Hara is destroyed, there is nothing to brag about. After all, O'Hara has no strength at all. Before Alabasta, Orgrim had also thought that in the future, working against the world government would be the basis of my happiness as a pirate. When the world government is dealing with O'Hara, he goes in to disrupt the situation. It's best to let some scholars go. Even provide O'Hara with some protection or something. But now, forget it, Orgrim wished they had died. The only pity is the little Lolita Nicole Robin. I guess under O'Hara's cultural influence, this little Lolita is very good at not spitting on her when she sees her, right? After sending Stussy away, Orgrim turned and walked towards his courtyard. On the way, Gangplank came out of a dark corner. Without Orgrim's attention, he really didn't notice that he was approaching him. I have to say, maybe this transparent fruit really has the side effect of eliminating the sense of existence. Gangplank called Orgrim several times before Orgrim noticed him. "You guy, why are you so mysterious now?" Orgrim muttered. Gangplank was also a little helpless and said, "Master Hammer, I have shouted several times. You don't know what you are thinking. You are completely ignoring me. It seems that you used the transparent fruit well." Orgrim joked with a smile. Gangplank smiled bitterly and did not explain anything, but said, "Master Hammer, the news about Douglas Barrett has come out. Orgrim has been looking for this guy, not that he covets his strength. Barrett is very strong, but Orgrim does not lack a cotter like him. Being able to recruit him is the icing on the cake. No, fate doesn't matter. But Barrett is very valuable in another aspect. He is a rare soldier among pirates, and he was an extremely good soldier in the past. In the country with the main theme, he can be called the best soldier. If he hadn't been framed and betrayed, he would have almost received that country's highest medal of honor. Even his power was feared by the country. After the war, I wanted to kill him at the first opportunity. Orgrim is a very self-aware person. He knows very well that his strengths and advantages lie in his personal strength. In other aspects, he can only be regarded as ordinary, and he cannot explain it. What comes with excellence? Strategic vision and so on. As his status has risen over the years, he has experienced more and more things and naturally accumulated a lot of experience. But it is mainly because he can foresee the future that he can do everything. Get the first move. Putting aside these things, Orgrim is no different from the others. So he is also happy to leave the things he is not good at to those who are good at it. Beckman is a bit, Gangplank is the same. The rest of the Warhammer pirates each have their own division of labor. As long as they are trustworthy people, Orgrim does not mind spreading out his power. He is not a man who likes to be authoritarian. Compared with being addicted to all kinds of power and things, he prefers to be more free, practice his own strength, catch fish, drink tea, and so on. Now, the population of the Warhammer pirates is large enough. Next, while vigorously developing the economy of Avalon Island, it is also necessary to build a force that can protect tens of millions of people. And Orgrim's idea is to form a mature pirate army without the chaos of the past. System to support, he needs talents in this area. After all, this is a very professional thing. Orgrim has never been a soldier in his previous life, he is just a fisherman. In this life, he has barely become a garrison officer. He was in a position where he didn't have many people under his command, and then he became a pirate in one fell swoop. It was even less likely that he knew any professional knowledge about the military. Therefore, Douglas Barrett came into his sight. If it was just about his strength, he is not enough to make Orgrim particularly interested. But in terms of talent, Orgrim is determined to win him. Winning the allegiance of Douglas Barrett is actually difficult to say, and it is not difficult to say that it is not difficult. That is, being able to make him surrender in terms of strength. What Barrett pursues is extreme personal strength. Once Orgrim can convince him in this aspect, before he defeats Orgrim, he will be able to defeat Orgrim. Ream's service does not seem to be something he cannot accept. And this is precisely the strength and advantage of Orgrim. Isn't it a one-on-one fight? Who is afraid of whom? Once Barrett is convinced, let him be loyal to in the Warhammer Pirates, Orgrim will delegate power, with Barrett as the center, and let him build a pirate army belonging to the Warhammer Pirates. When this army is truly formed, Orgrim's basic base will be stable. At that time, he can enter to conquer the New World and compete with the heroes, and when he retreats, he can stick to the Eternal Night Sea and become the overlord of the sea. No matter how you calculate it, you won't suffer any loss. Have you finally settled this matter? Where is that guy? I'm going to personally comfort this bastard and make him change his mind and join our Warhammer Pirates. Orgrim smiled evilly and said. Of course Gangplank understood what Orgrim was thinking, and was not surprised. He said naturally he is in the West Sea. Orgrim was stunned for a moment, then murmured in surprise, Western Sea? What are you doing in the Western Sea? You must have gone to O'Hara to study archaeology, right? Gangplank smiled, waved his hand and said, then how is it possible? He seems to have gone to the Kingdom of Flowers and has some contact with the Babao Navy. Orgrim frowned, wondering what Douglas Barrett was doing. In fact, for a long time, Barrett has been looking for ways to make himself stronger. Although he is a devil fruit user, in terms of strength, Barrett relies more on his physical strength. He was born in the military, so he already liked this and had a good foundation. However, after all, he was in the military and did not receive any great training. He relied solely on his war experience and piled up his own strength. Later he joined the Roger Pirates, and Roger's guidance further improved his strength. But unlike places like Shiji, the Roger Pirates' background is both high and low. The emphasis is on teaching by words and deeds, and teaching them step by step. For example, Shanks learned Roger's divine evasion and Rayleigh's sword skills. But the problem is, Barrett didn't stay on Roger's ship for long, and soon left the Roger Pirates. There are rumors in the sea that his strength can compete with Hades' Shilbaz Rayleigh. In fact, this is all false. How could Rayleigh have a real fight with him? Every time, there were just some instructive points, and the two sides seemed to be a little on the same level. Douglas Barrett himself knew in his heart that Rayleigh was a veteran pirate. How long had he been at sea? So he is not so arrogant. But in his heart, he always wanted to surpass Roger, the Pirate King. So he never gave up any possibility that could make him stronger. The reason why he went to the Kingdom of Flowers was very simple, that is, he wanted to get the training method of Ba Chongquan from the 8th Treasure Navy Army. In his early years, Qing Jiao was also a big pirate in the New World. He made a great name in the New World by relying on his 8 punches. Until he met Garp, the evil nemesis, and gave him justice from heaven, which crushed his head and finally withdrew from the New World sadly. Although Qing Jiao left the New World, he couldn't resist the fact that he had already made a name for himself in Bachongquan. Although Douglas Barrett did not intend to directly switch to Ba Chongquan, Ba Chongquan is indeed one of the rare magic secrets in the sea. Even if you don't learn it, there is nothing wrong with using it to confirm your own path. It is beneficial but not harmful. It is for this reason that Barrett went to the West Sea and went to the Kingdom of Flowers to seek advice from the Babao Navy. As for what the Babao Navy would do if he didn't teach him, don't forget, he is an evil pirate known for mass murder. If you can't ask for it, why don't you just rob it? In this world, strength speaks for itself after all. No matter what he does in the Kingdom of Flowers, this bastard has finally been found, and I can't let him run away. It just so happens that I am also very interested in the Kingdom of Flowers, especially the culture there. I have never had time to see it before. Look, let's drop by this time too. Orgrim raised his eyebrows and said. Maybe this time, he can watch the Navy headquarters demon-slaying order kill O'Hara at close range. Of course, Orgrim is also very interested in this kind of good thing. Now, I didn't go before because I was too lazy to go that far, but since I'm on my way this time, Orgrim would be happy to see the death of those bastard scholars in O'Hara. Then let me make some arrangements for you, Mr. Chewie. Is it necessary to dispatch the Black Narwhal? Plank asked softly. No, that thing is the flagship of our Warhammer pirates, and everyone on the sea will recognize it. If I go to the West Sea on this ship, will I scare the world government and the Navy headquarters into trouble? Just arrange a small boat and try not to expose my whereabouts. Orgrim waved his hand and said. Okay, got it, Mr. Hammer. Plank nodded and said. Anyway, there is nothing in Avalon that I need to deal with personally now. It's better to choose a different day. Let's set off tomorrow. I'll ask if anyone has nothing to do and can go with me. Orgrim smiled and said. Before Gangplank could speak, he said to himself, oh, I thought I would be free and easy as a pirate, but it seems that I was born to be busy. The front leg just came back from Fishman Island, and the back leg is going to the West Sea. By the way, the handover messengers from Fishman Island will be here in a while. Take good care of them and don't neglect them. My relationship with Fishman Island is pretty good. Ha ha ha, okay Master Chewie, I will tell all the cotters. Plank smiled. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 259. The Flower Country in the West Sea has a large island area and is also a country known for its strong military strength. The most famous thing under the Flower Kingdom is their naval force, which seems to be named after Bao, from 1 treasure to 8 treasures. At this time, at a certain port in the Kingdom of Flowers, Orgrim, Mihawk, and Hank got off a small boat. The 3 of them were all wearing cloaks and hoods, which barely covered their appearance and figure, so they did not cause any sensation. Why are you interested in coming out with me this time? Orgrim asked Mihawk while walking in the port. Since the incident in Imperial, Mihawk seemed to dislike Orgrim. Orgrim was also very fond of it. It's unfair. I didn't leave you there alone. Speaking of which, the first person who thinks of you is me. How can you blame all this matter on me? But recently, Mihawk seems to have he didn't mind this matter anymore. After listening to Orgrim's inquiry, he smiled and responded, my swordsmanship has reached a new bottleneck, so I need to come out for some air, walk more, and see more. If you can meet a suitable opponent and get in touch, you may be able to make new breakthroughs. So what you mean is, are you going to fight Douglas Barrett? Orgrim asked in surprise. No, that guy is not a swordsman. Mihawk shook his head. After a slight pause, Mihawk continued, it depends on fate. I have a hunch that I will meet my opponent in the West Sea. Your premonition really came out of nowhere, Orgrim shrugged. As soon as he entered the Kingdom of Flowers, Orgrim felt a sense of intimacy that he had not seen for a long time. It was as if he was not in the world of pirates, but in the ancient times of his previous life. However, Orgrim was not too surprised, because he had known for a long time that this world had developed very diverse cultures due to the scattered islands and the obstruction of the ocean. The country of flowers is one of them. The culture here is also popular in poetry, just like the flourishing Tang dynasty. There is an intelligence officer of the Warhammer pirates arranged by Gangplank in the port town. Orgrim and others are going to meet him this time to obtain the whereabouts of Douglas Barrett. At the same time, at Marine Headquarters Marineford, a group of Navy generals had just finished a meeting. Kuzan and Giant Lieutenant General Hagovar D. Sorrow walks together. The two of them were also chatting about something. Those CP guys actually found the evidence. Sorrow, there seems to be a living person on the ship you captured this time? Kuzan asked as he walked. A while has passed since Orgrim told Stussy the news about O'Hara. Didn't you see that Orgrim came to the West Sea in a small boat from the New World? The CP agency also acted quickly. Under the orders of the world government, it cooperated with the Navy. Due to the intelligence provided by Stussy, it reversely investigated O'Hara and tracked some scholars with serious suspicions. Finally, it was discovered that these scholars were in after going to sea, they quickly gathered on a ship. With more in-depth investigation, they found that the people on the ship were indeed searching for historical texts and studying ancient texts. This time, O'Hara's secret was completely confirmed. Charge. Sorrow, a giant lieutenant general, was ordered to arrest the scholars on the ship. In the end, due to the fierce resistance of the scholars, Sorrow only captured one alive, and that was Nicole Orbia. In fact, there were at that time, I had to admit that although O'Hara's scholars had lost their minds, their spirit of not fearing death was really powerful. After discovering that they had been exposed to the Navy, they would rather commit suicide before being caught. He did not want to fall into the hands of the world government. Orbia was caught because he was a little slow. Sorrow's expression was a little tangled. After hearing Kuzan's inquiry, he nodded slightly and said softly, "Well, a female scholar, I was told to get more information from her, but that guy, he had always wanted to seek death, and he had been interrogated, but he had not revealed anything." Kuzan said with some emotion, "The people of O'Hara have really hard bones. Sorrow has been investigating this matter for the past few years." Kuzan, as his good friend, of course also understands the twists and turns involved. The Navy had previously focused on Alabasta. Who would have thought that these things would happen? It's O'Hara. This really confused Kuzan. How dare they? But after actually coming into contact with these hard bones, they seemed to understand a little bit. These people seemed to be caught in some kind of fanaticism and felt that they were doing something great, and for this, it didn't matter even if they gave their lives. Is it because of this unreasonable fanaticism that leads to their blind arrogance? Sorrow's expression hesitated for a moment, and then he asked hesitantly, "Kuzan, are the scholars really guilty?" "What's the meaning?" Kuzan was stunned for a moment and said. "I have been pursuing this matter for many years. These scholars are just looking for historical texts and studying ancient texts. They have never done any other bad things. They have never killed people or plundered." A group of scholars seeking knowledge, really a criminal? Sorrow asked with a tangled expression. Sorrow. Kuzan first shouted, and then said in a deep voice, "Of course he is a criminal. Violating the law is not just as vicious as pirates. Don't forget, the world government has expressly stipulated it and repeatedly issued it, emphasizing the study of ancient texts, and the text of history is a felony, which is one of the laws. As a holy place for scholars, O'Hara knows the law and breaks the law, which is an additional penalty. Don't have any unnecessary thoughts." Sorrow was silent for a moment, and after a long time, he said quietly, "This law, it's really strange that historians are forbidden to study that blank history. It's a bit strange, but Sorrows, this is not a reason to violate the law. If O'Hara really wants to study the history of the taboo, he should use normal means and methods and propose the abolition of this law at the World Conference. Go through the corresponding process, and no matter whether it succeeds or not, at least they have tried, but they did not, but chose this radical approach from the beginning. Since you have chosen to do it, you must take responsibility, Kuzin said in a deep voice. Savulo actually can't understand this kind of thing. It's not that he is particularly kind. He is kind to the point of being naive. As a lieutenant general of the Navy headquarters, he is not such an idiot. The main reason is still the reason is that sorrow is a giant. There is a very big difference between the concept of time between giants and humans, and it is an almost irreversible instinct difference. In Sorrow's view, O'Hara just wants to study 800 years. It's just a blank history before, and 800 years ago, it seems to be something that happened in my grandfather's generation. What can't be studied? How strange. But from the perspective of human society, this happened several centuries ago, and the difference is so huge. Although the Navy headquarters has cooperated with the CP agency and determined that the scholars who study taboo history are all from O'Hara. But now, we still need to arrange and investigate, and we also need to communicate with the world government. After all, O'Hara's status is indeed very special, and the world government has previously taken great care of this archaeological holy site. My little brother suddenly went against the grain, which made the world government very sad. We need to think of a way to deal with O'Hara, and we also need to investigate further. Are some scholars from O'Hara doing this, or has the entire O'Hara fallen to the enemy? The difference here also determines how the world government will treat O'Hara. If there are only some people, then assassinate them secretly. If the entire O'Hara falls, then more brutal methods will have to be used. After Sorrow said goodbye to Kuzin, he walked towards the prison. He has the task of interrogating Nicole Albia. Nicole Albia, her limbs are now shackled, and she is being held in a dark prison. Sorrow's huge figure walked into the prison, and his head seemed to hit the roof. He slowly came to Albia's cage and looked at Albia, a frail female scholar, in silence. I was also a little strange and confused in my heart. What on earth could support such a weak person with such a strong will? Butcher, after seeing Sorrow, Albia cursed in a low voice. In her opinion, Sorrow slaughtered all the scholars on the research ship, so he could be called a butcher. But Sorrow was confused. It was obviously you who committed suicide, okay. I just want to catch you. Nicole Orbia, although you are unwilling to speak now, unfortunately, I have to tell you that we have investigated your identity clearly, O'Hara's great scholar, am I right? Sorrow said softly. When the words O'Hara were spoken, a look of horror flashed in Albia's eyes. Upon seeing this, Sorrow whispered again, so you don't have to do this anymore. Instead of enduring a painful interrogation, tell everything you know. You all know it, so what else is there to say? Albia said after a moment of silence. Was it O'Hara or some of O'Hara's scholars who were involved in this matter? Sorrow asked. Albia said without hesitation, we are some scholars. We formed a small group and want to explore the hidden history. Sorrow's eyes were a little helpless. You answered so quickly. No matter how you think about it, there's something wrong with it, right? During Sorrow's silence, Albia suddenly asked, is this the justice of your navy? What? Sorrow was stunned for a moment and said. Is it justice for your navy to massacre unarmed scholars? Albia asked. First, I did not massacre. Second, you are scholars who have committed serious crimes. Our navy has the responsibility to apprehend you, Sorrow said softly. Felony? As a scholar, isn't it natural to respect history, study history, and research history? History is a treasure for all mankind. Even the world government cannot and should not cover up history. We are doing things that are beneficial to all mankind. Albia's eyes flashed with fiery brilliance and she yelled loudly. Sorrow was unable to answer some of the questions, so he could only emphasize, but you violated the laws of the world government. Law. then the law is simply wrong, isn't it? Just like it restricts your navy from arresting pirates, we historians cannot study history. What is the reason? Orbia asked again. It has to be said that Sorrow still inherited the simplicity of the giants. Kuzan had clearly explained the truth to him before, but at this time he heard Orbia when Baya questioned him. He actually felt that what this guy said made sense. Yes, isn't it natural for historians to study history just like the Navy arresting pirates? This matter, why is it illegal? Is there a problem with the law? If Orgrim were here, he would probably go up and give Orbia a big slap in the face. The thing that is not good for you is that there is a problem with the law. When you scolded me, why didn't you say there was a problem with the law? What do you mean about co-authorship? Are you all right? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 260. The Bayou Glacier near the Kingdom of Flowers has a cold climate all year round, and the condensed glaciers are also quite powerful. Rumor has it that the Babao Navy has buried countless treasures here for generations. In fact, this is indeed the case. If you look down from the top of the glacier, you can see a large amount of treasure frozen in the glacier. This is also the origin of the name Bayou Glacier. Many treasure hunters and pirates have visited this glacier, hoping to dig out the treasures of the 8 treasure Navy army and take them away. But since ancient times, no one has succeeded. The hardness of this Bayou Glacier is rare in this world. It seems that only the pillars of the Babao Navy can break through the glacier and take out the treasure with the 8-chong fist. Many people believe this statement, but in fact, it is not the case. It mainly depends on the strength. For example, Garp, who blasted Green Pepper's head, can obviously break through the Bayou Glacier. Newgate and others can probably do it too. As for Shiji, once the ability is activated, it can affect the changes in the glacier, let alone the changes in the glacier. But the Babao Navy is not a vegetarian. Behind them is the Kingdom of Flowers. The Navy under the world government will naturally not come to snatch the treasures of the country it joins. There is no need for ordinary big pirates to become enemies with the 8 treasure Navy for these treasures. No matter what, the 8 treasure Navy is also very powerful. This treasure is of great significance to them, not just a matter of wealth. If anyone robbed this thing, they would probably fight to the death from now on. Therefore, strong people will not come to snatch it, and weak people will not be able to snatch it away. As a result, the reputation of Bayou Glacier is getting bigger and bigger. The Babao Navy seems to have become the master here. At this time, on the Bayou Glacier, there were 2 figures, one tall and one low, one strong and one thin, walking. One of them is Douglas Barrett, whom Orgrim is looking for. The other person looked very young, wearing a straw hat on his head. Under the straw hat, his burgundy hair could be vaguely seen. Although they were walking on the glacier where the cold wind was howling, both of them seemed to be very thinly dressed. Douglas Barrett was only wearing a black military uniform with no national symbols on it. And the red-haired boy wearing a straw hat was even more arrogant. He wore a short-sleeved shirt with only half of the buttons on his chest, and even only wore a pair of flip-flops. That's right, this guy is none other than the former trainee crew member of the Roger Pirates, red-haired Shanks. Barrett, do you really not want to think about it? I want to form a new pirate group. We are old acquaintances and we are all from Captain Rogers' side. Do you want to do it with me? Shanks followed Barrett and asked with a smile. Barrett shook his head as he walked and said without hesitation, no, Shanks, although I also appreciate your talents. With potential, but you are not worthy now. You guys are still so direct when you speak, can't you save a little face for me? Shanks complained with a smile. Although Douglas Barrett said that he was not worthy, it seemed that Shanks was not angry. In terms of strength, Shanks' strength at this time is indeed not as good as Barrett. Monster. After leaving Rogtown, Shanks also invited Bucky to join his pirate team. But Bucky rejected him without hesitation. Even though Shanks was in his own when he was seriously ill, he stayed to take care of Bucky. But he almost took care of Bucky to death. At the same time, the two of them had been fighting on Roger's ship. Bucky always felt that if it weren't for Shanks, he won't become a landlubber and miss out on countless treasures. In short, although the two have a deep brotherhood, Bucky doesn't like Shanks, let alone a pirate who joins him. He became the captain. Therefore, after the riot in Rogue Town, Bucky and Shanks separated. Bucky stayed in the East China Sea, and Shanks returned to his hometown in the West China Sea. Originally, he wanted to stay in the East China Sea. He rested for a while in the West Sea and then formed his own pirate group. As a result, in the West Sea, he accidentally learned the news about Douglas Barrett. Shanks thought to himself that Barrett was once one of his partners. Anyway, he had nothing to do. He was idle, and that guy was very powerful. Why not give it a try and tell him about the pirate group? Maybe he would be willing to join. Then, Shanks found Barrett in the West Sea. Barrett, although lighter, has a somewhat withdrawn personality. He is not an autistic person. He was in a good mood after meeting his comrades on the same boat. So he did not chase Shanks away. After knowing Shanks' purpose, the two of them got together. They even sparred once. During this period of time, Shanks' strength was as if he was cheating, and he was constantly improving. But in the end, he was still inferior to Barrett, so Barrett refused. Shanks accepted Shanks' invitation. However, Shanks did not leave. Anyway, there was nothing to do for the time being. He finally met his former partner, so he followed Barrett to the Kingdom of Flowers and entered the Bayou Glacier together. Maybe in the future, when you have the confidence to defeat me, you can tell me this again. I will agree, right, Barrett said again. This can be regarded as an agreement between Barrett and Shanks, but things are unpredictable. Within a few years, Barrett was blocked by the Navy with the demon-slaying order. Then the guy went to Imperial as a guest. When he came out again, Shanks was already the Yonko. Barrett did not go to him, but was planning some big events. This guy disappeared. Shanks couldn't find him at that time, so the two of them completely missed him. I'm not boasting. Give me a few more years and I should be able to do it, Shanks said with a smile. Don't forget, I am constantly making progress. Barrett glanced at Shanks and said. Whispering sound, Shanks muttered at first, and then asked curiously, then what are you going to do after you get the 8 punches? The reason why Douglas Barrett came to Bayou Glacier was to find Ching Chiao, but haven't found it yet. What's wrong with confirming the 8-punch boxing and improving one's own strength? Barrett asked. Have you never thought about forming your own pirate group? Shanks asked curiously. Pirates, Barrett murmured, then shook his head and said, I'm not interested. The strong will not surrender to me. I don't like the weak at all. Moreover, I have some resistance to the pirate group and so on. In contrast, then, I believe more in the power of personal strength. Yeah? What about joining someone else's pirate group? Haven't you thought about it? Shanks asked again. You mean Whitebeard? People like Kaido and Charlotte Lingling. Barrett looked at Shanks and said. Well, after all, they are very powerful now, and that Orgrim, Shanks replied with a smile. I once joined the Roger Pirates, and that is enough. I will not join the banner of these old guys again. If there is really someone I am attracted to, indeed, as you said, Orgrim is nice, but, after Barrett said this, he said no more. He will no longer join the pirates of the previous generation. Kaido and Charlotte Lingling all belong to the previous generation in terms of seniority. Not to mention Whitebeard. After all, the person Barrett recognized the most was Roger, even if he was dead. Therefore, even if there is an interested pirate group, Barrett is only willing to join the pirates of his own generation, such as Kazgarot or Grim. But he won't take the initiative to go, he is just interested. If that guy comes to invite him, maybe he can consider it. And just think about it, if you really want to join Orgrim's pirate group, again, it depends on whether Orgrim is capable enough. He, Douglas Barrett, only wants to surrender to the strong. And he had to make it clear to Orgrim first that after his strength surpassed that of the other party, he would not stay any longer. If Orgrim can meet these conditions, then Barrett wouldn't mind joining his banner. Orgrim, you guys all like his appearance, right? It was the same with the captain back then, as well as with Senior Rayleigh and Brother Jabba. Shanks muttered something. Obviously I'm not bad either. Ha ha ha, Barrett smiled, then reached out and patted the straw hat on Shanks' head, and said, you have to admit that the only pirate of our generation on the sea today is Kazgarot's ogre. Mew, leading the way. Speaking of this, Barrett also felt a little emotional and missed his old rival Crocodile. Yeah, I was obviously very optimistic about him. But after his battle with Whitebeard, he withdrew from the New World and went to Alabasta for who knows what, as if his ambition was gone. Like many people, Barrett previously regarded Crocodile as someone of the same level as Orgrim, but after all, Orgrim was superior. Crocodile failed to challenge Whitebeard and broke one of his hands, but Orgrim defeated Imperial and broke the Admiral's hand. It is already obvious who is strong and weak here. Among the other pirates of the same period, Douglas Barrett had no interest in and disdain for people like Moonlight Moria. In his opinion, only Crocodile and Orgrim were on the same level as him. Now that Crocodile has temporarily cooled down, only Orgrim is left, so even if he wants to join any pirate group, he will only join the Warhammer Pirates. For this reason, in the original story, there was no Orgrim, and Barrett has been alone since he left the Roger Pirates. Because the world is so big, there is no place for him, Barrett. Just when Barrett and Shanks were talking about this, they felt a little emotional. Suddenly an unruly laughter came out. Then, 3 figures came out from behind the glacier not far ahead. Gee ha 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 ha, didn't you expect me to be so popular? Orgrim laughed and looked at Barrett and Shanks. Mihawk and Hank stood beside Orgrim. At first glance, what he saw was not the tall Barrett. On the contrary, there is Shanks, who is not very eye-catching. With just one glance, Mihawk seemed to have found his destiny in the West Sea. He could see that Shanks was a powerful swordsman and also young. Kazgarot Orgrim. Shanks was stunned for a moment and said. Barrett also looked at Orgrim with a surprised expression and then asked, I'm really surprised. Why are you here? As he spoke, Barrett glanced at the glacier at his feet, and then asked, are you here for the Bayou Glacier? Orgrim waved his hand, laughed and said, what is Bayou Glacier? It's not worth traveling all the way from the New World. The only reason why I'm here is because of you, Douglas Barrett. I need you, so I sincerely invite you to join our Warhammer Pirates.